You know how some phones come out and they don't really look all that interesting, or you don't really hear much about them, so you kind of just move on with your life and completely forget about them? Yeah, don't do that with this phone. This is the ZTE Axon 30 Ultra, a phone I've been testing out for the past 3 weeks, and I have been thoroughly enjoying it. This is kind of a sleeper phone. It looks pretty unassuming and even a little bit plain if I'm honest, but it's got a lot under the hood. Let me just read out the spec sheet real quick. Snapdragon 888, between 8 and 16 gigs of RAM, 144 Hz OLED display with a 300 Hz touch sampling rate, 4 rear cameras including a 5x periscoping lens, and a 4600 mAh battery with 65 watt fast charging. So yeah, pretty impressive list of specs. It's pretty obvious that they took a lot of design inspiration from last year's Samsung Note 20 Ultra, but while I do like the clean look of that camera bump with the glossy rainbow finish, I think they could have done a little better. It's solidly built and the glass back feels very nice in the hand, but this gray color is a little too drab for my liking. I wish they did something a little bit more bold with the look of this phone. But the back of this phone is whatever, right? Most of you guys are probably gonna put a case on this thing anyway. The most important part of this phone is what's on the front, and in that regard, the ZTE Axon 30 Ultra does not disappoint. The display on this device looks fantastic. It's nice and colorful, and it's got a little bit of curvature to the side edges that I know a lot of you enjoy. There is a tiny hole punch for the front-facing camera, but that's the biggest distraction on the front side of this phone. The bezels on the top and bottom are tiny and unobtrusive. It's also got an under-display fingerprint reader. It's not the fastest I've seen, but it's no slouch either. There have been very few times where the phone didn't register my thumb properly, so it seems pretty accurate. I'm gonna be honest here, I'll be a little sad when I have to send this device back to ZTE. This is the first phone that I've used with a 144 Hz refresh rate display, and I can absolutely tell the difference between the 120 Hz on my S21 Ultra and the 144 Hz on this display. Now, not everyone will. I'm very attuned to it because I have high refresh rate monitors at home for gaming, but either way, this display is super fluid, especially with that 300 Hz touch sampling rate, giving it even more responsiveness. It's also one of the best displays out there for color accuracy. It's a 10-bit panel that covers 100% of the P3 color gamut, so everything looks very true to life. The one downside to this display is that it's only a 1080p panel, so it's not quite as sharp as my S21 Ultra. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still plenty sharp, but it's just not the sharpest. My only real complaint about the front side of this phone has to do with the speakers. They're stereo, and they do get nice and loud, but after about 50 or 60% on the volume level, they start to distort, and it makes for a somewhat uncomfortable or unpleasant listening experience. I highly recommend headphones or earbuds if you watch a lot of media content on your phone. The phone does come with a USB-C to 3.5mm dongle if you want to go that route. The ZTE Axon 30 Ultra runs on ZTE's MyOS, and I actually like this skin a lot. It's very similar in design to the Android 12 beta that was just released. The animations are fluid, and all of the buttons in the drop-down menu are nice and big for good accessibility. MyOS adds a few interesting features too, like this side menu that you can drag out, similar to Samsung's Edge panels. They also let you do things like change how sensitive the edges of the display are to prevent accidental touches, and they let you see which parts of the hardware draw the most power, which I find very interesting. There have been a couple of bugs that I ran into here and there, but I mean, this is a brand new phone with brand new software, so that's not really much of a surprise to me. Performance is solid, and that also shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. In fact, the performance is so good that this phone might be one of the best options out there for someone who wants a gaming phone but doesn't want to have to deal with the weird gamery aesthetic of most gaming phones. Again, it's kind of a sleeper. It looks like a regular smartphone, but it's a 144 Hz gaming monster, especially when paired up with a Razer Kishi or some other smartphone controller. To keep up with the high-end specs, ZTE threw a pretty big 4600 mAh battery into the phone, and yes, if you're playing games for hours at a time, you can definitely kill the battery in a single day. But I mean, you could do that on any phone. If you're not a hardcore gamer, the phone will easily last you all day and maybe even part of another one. Once the battery is dead, you can plug it in with the included 65-watt USB-C fast charger and watch the numbers increase rapidly. I plugged my phone in at 40% once and timed it, and it took about 20-ish minutes to charge all the way up to 100%. 40% to 100% in 20 minutes? Not bad at all. Unfortunately, it does not have any wireless charging or any form of water resistance certification though, but once I tell you how much this phone costs, that's gonna make a lot more sense to you. The Axon 30 Ultra is $749 US, making it cheaper than almost every single Snapdragon 888 phone on the market. I think the only exception is the Nubia Red Magic 6. Either way, it's undercutting a lot of phones. The Samsung S21 starts at $800 right now and gets significantly more expensive as you go up the line. But before you run out and buy this, we need to talk about the camera situation. The cameras on this phone are very versatile. There's an ultra wide, a standard, a 2x telephoto, as well as a 5x periscoping zoom. The thing is, they're just not that amazing. Sure, the pictures coming out of most of the cameras are sharp since 3 out of the 4 cameras are 64 megapixel shooters, but I find that the cameras have a difficult time deciding on how to handle color balance. Some pictures end up too warm and some end up too cold. It also doesn't do the best with portrait mode photos. The background blur looks really artificial and there's a good amount of haloing around the edges of faces. Still, the phone is capable of taking some pretty fantastic photos, it's just a little inconsistent. The cameras are the biggest negative with this phone, and it's not even really a true negative, it's just mediocre. If you don't care all that much about camera performance, this phone could be a real winner for you. I like this phone. ZTE's been a little off the radar for a while, at least here in North America, and I'm glad to see them come out swinging with the Axon 30 Ultra. There's a couple of small areas that definitely could be improved, but overall, I think they made the right cuts in the right places to keep this phone as affordable as possible without sacrificing too much of what's important. I mean, look, it's got a fantastic display, top-tier specs and performance, great battery life, and super fast charging, and it's more affordable than most Snapdragon 888 phones out there. It's still definitely not what I'd call cheap, but it's a reasonably priced device. I'll leave links to where you can find this phone in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day.